Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Chassidus in the morning. 15 minutes to change our lives. Look at the Sichas Chalak Base, Parshas Nasso. We are going to discuss today, Mr. Hashem, in this Sicha. We're going to quote from Basi Lagani of the Fridi Karabba, and we're going to bring down this idea, just finishing learning Saita. The Chabad custom, Minog, is between Pesach and Shavuos, Aseret Eimer, you learn Pesach Saita, and one of the reasons is because Saita is all about Ein Adam Over Avera Elaim Nechos Beruach Shtus. It's about the Nefesh Bahamas and transforming Nefesh Bahamas, which is all about the Aseret Eimer. And in this week's Parsha also talks about this person, Kisista Ishtay, when a person strays. And we're going to discuss, of course, what does that mean with us turning astray, and how, on one hand, we go astray, on the other hand, we're never too far gone. All that in the next few 15 minutes. Let's begin. So the Basi Lagani of the Fridi Karabba, who mazvis inyan shel shtus lumatze, explains the idea of shtus, of lumatze, of the opposite of kedusha, meaning shtus, folly, things that irrational that we do, in simple English, things that are irrational that we do that aren't good. And the irrational aren't good, meaning even logically it doesn't make any sense. Logically, it makes sense, maybe, to get up and do exercise. That makes sense. Could be the wrong time, but there's logic behind it. But here it's eating the fifth piece of cheesecake when your stomach's already hurting. Why would you do that? Maybe Chacham brings the proof in the pasuk Kisishta Ishta, when a woman turns astray, which is in the sixth parasha. Talking about a saita. That saita is a case of a woman that is suspected of adultery. Her husband warned her, don't seclude yourself with such and such a person, and then she does. Now, so clearly, by a saita, it's very important to understand, clarify that she hasn't done anything wrong yet. If she does something wrong, then it's a different category. So it's a specific case where the husband warned, talks about that he shouldn't do this, but the husband warns his wife, don't exclude yourself from this person in privacy, and she does, and there's witnesses that she was in privacy with him, but no one knows if anything happened. So then she becomes in this category, special category of Satan. And that's what, and the Fridi Karabba in his Maimer, when he's bringing this idea of shtus lomadze, he brings from a pasuk of Satan. Now, Chassidus, everything is very exact. It's not just, whatever, everything is very exact and it's precise. So move on. Therefore, when we bring down a proof from a pasuk, it's a big bekius, it's not to show that the Rebbeim knew Torah. But it's showing the connection of the pasuk, meaning to say that this pasuk, when a woman turns astray, is very much connected to this idea of shtus l'madza, of doing things that are illogical, in the negative. And so we're going to question this, because seemingly that's a very extreme case. Say, and Ein Adam Over, saying this idea is very extreme. And then we're going to discuss how it's actually not so extreme and teach us a lot of lessons. Okay, move on. Now, seemingly the connection is that with the reason why the Fridi Karabba brings it in regards to when shtus l'madze, he uses this pasuk, shal zeh bo ha'irah pasuk b'pashtus harei drash razal imeres ein adam over avera ela im nichasei beruach shtus, because it says, I bring down in Saita that a person doesn't do an avera except if they have a ruach shtus, a spirit of shtus, folly. Literally, they translate it, but it means like insanity. Like we wouldn't do an avera if there's something, some ruach shtus, something overcame us. Meaning, by nature, we don't do anything wrong. By nature, we don't do any averas. We don't. The Rebbe brings down the Sikha, doing an avera, it's like jumping to the fire. By nature, we don't jump into the fire. So what is it? But we do averas. How is that possible? Because there's a ruach shtus, and but to use this idea that we don't do an avera unless a ruach shtus comes, we use the example of a seitzah, of kisis ishta, a woman turning astray. So mevuseses al pasuk zeh, and that idea of a person turning astray and a person doing an avera because of a ruach shtus, a spirit, something overcame them and pulls them away from what's logical. We use this pasuk of the example of a seitzah. Now, this itself, we need to understand this. There's plenty of sayings of the rabbis, like this example of Ein Adam Over Aver Ela Im Nichnas Baruch Shtus. The person who's doing Aver unless the spirit is probably enters him. There's plenty of different types of ideas, sayings of the rabbis. They don't bring a pasuk to prove it. Therefore, in our example, ki lepasuk ki sista ishtem sheyech micheres inin im ein adam over avera b'chulu v'yesh habin sheiches zu mahi. What's the connection? Meaning like this. Meaning, there's plenty of times that the rabbis bring an idea, a drasha. They say a vart, and they don't bring any pasuk to prove it. So then, how come in this case we bring a pasuk? What's going on here? Why is there a pasuk being brought? So we have to say that this pasuk is, and this is the beauty of the Rebbe saying, like he said in the beginning, everything is meduik. This pasuk not just stop and bring a pasuk to show how smart the Rebbeim are, but the pasuk really is something to help us understand this idea, which mitzvah Hashem we are going to understand, and of course understand it not in a theoretical subject somewhere in the Shemayim, but understand how it applies to us, what it's telling us. Yes, again, even more than this, built you want to understood. Now there's in 200, there's 100. But in 100, there's no 200. Now, obvious, if you have 200, it means you just have 100. If you can run 10 miles, it means you can obviously run 1 mile. But if you can only run 1 mile, it doesn't mean doesn't mean you can run 10 miles. So what does that mean? Now this is going to discuss is how does this apply in regards to our case of the Satan? Like in our case of using this idea of shtus l'madzeh, or ein adam over avera, that we don't do anything wrong unless a ruach shtus comes upon us. So we're using an example of a seitan. That seems pretty extreme. That's what you're going to ask. Ach ein b'chal manem masayim. Madua eva yesh terech lehichiach me'avera chamura kisiste ishtoim v'haloi chal ein adam over avera elam nichbe ruach shtus eimer gam b'yechz averas kalam. Now, this concept of a person who's doing avera unless there's a ruach shtus, it says ein adam over avera, any avera. It could be the most simplest avera. And what's the proof? Well, you're getting proof of a woman that she's suspected of adultery. That's a crazy example to use to explain to us that this idea that sometimes we get pulled by a yetzer hara and we do something that doesn't make any sense. So why are we using such an extreme case of a seitan example to explain to us what does it mean that a person is doing avera unless a ruach shtus comes? That's any avera, even the last avera. We we did something so minimal, we forgot something, whatever it is. Saying that's on the same level as a woman suspected of adultery. That's how bad we are from that little thing. How really? And even more, the kaddish asr mutalach. It says, brought down in Tanya, Betanya Muzbar Tam Lekach Mishum She'eve Al Ratzon Elyon. That it says, Alter brings down in Tanya, and we have to make kaddish atzim mutalach, sanctify ourselves in what's permissible. And he says, bring down from Parach of Daled, that you have to sanctify yourself in everything that you do, even if something is permissible, but you don't have the right intention, it's all good. That's considered like an avera. And he's saying a person that doesn't do anything wrong, they eat ice cream just for taiva. Let me explain to you this idea. You know what happens when you do that? That's like a person that's adulterous, suspected adulterous woman. I'm really on that level, on the same level as that. It's a little extreme, no? Because you're going against Hashem as well. So therefore, the question is, like we just said, we strengthen the question. Madua So why we use such a crazy example? We're trying to bring a proof from a pasuk for this idea. First of all, we're asking, why bring a proof from a pasuk? There's plenty of sayings of the rabbis that they don't bring a pasuk as a proof, and here we do. And not just we do, we use an example to explain that a person doesn't do an avera unless a ruach shtus. By nature, we don't do anything wrong. We don't want to do anything wrong, but we have this moment of insanity that pulls us away and makes us do something that we shouldn't be doing. You know, it's like a spectologist woman. Really? Why so extreme? So we'll start today and get into it. So we're going to explain that really there's two reasons why we use this pasuk, and really the Rebbe's bringing out the question, but he's trying to help us appreciate that the fact that this pasuk is being brought in general, and this pasuk specific that seems very in extreme, it's actually helping us understand the makeup of ourselves and how we work, and what's the issue with ein adam over avera, and how do we overcome that? Let's see. The connection between this suspected adulterous woman pasuk and this idea that we don't do an avera unless the ruach shtus, the spirit of insanity, something overcomes us to do something wrong. There's two connections. The first one we're going to start today, and we'll finish tomorrow. And tomorrow maybe we'll really start the second one. Also, something interesting that we are actually going to finish the whole sikha. It's not very long, which is normally we don't get the chance. It's normally much longer. Let's see. Halacha shel kisista ishtay. The halacha of when a woman turns astray. Nemar lagabe eishes is. It's regards specifically to a married woman. The davka eishes ish davka eishes ish nasis bebiazul zena. And specifically, if she actually does have relations with this person, then she becomes a zena, a harlot. Loikein hapnuya. Not like if she is not married, meaning this example, to become a zayna in a halacha, you have to be married. And he says, even though the last Rabbi Eliezer, panuya, habal, panuya, as a zayna, even though Rabbi Eliezer, even if you're not married, if so to speak, a single person has relations with another single person, he says, according to Eliezer, that's still considered a zayna, but that's not halacha. That's only one opinion. It's not. We don't follow that according to halacha. But meaning the idea of kisiste ishtay is specific to a married person, married woman. Meaning the reason why there's this stringency in this avera, kasher b'yosei eishes ish. It's specific because she's a married woman. Just like by the case of kisiste ishtay, when a woman turns astray, this is specific when she's married. So too, and we're questioning why we're using this example. So we're saying so too in regards to ourselves. What happened when we do an avera? We separate ourselves from Hashem. Meaning we are like the Saita, sister Ishtoim, in the sense that we're also married. We're married to Hashem. So kol avera, I feel avera kala poigemes kol kach. Even so, therefore, every avera, even the lightest avera, it affects. Mishum sheisalahein b'chinas isha. Like Hakadosh Baruch Hu, as we're going to explain tomorrow, further that we are like a woman, we are married to Hashem, and therefore, and just like in a marriage, and this is a very good marriage advice. Just like in marriage, everything is important. That there's no things that are not so important. Meaning, if the marriage is based off the other care about Hashem, like the example of us and Hashem, and also that's what we're talking about here, or using it as an example of husband and wife. Everything's important. If it's about the other, about Hashem, about your husband, about your wife, so therefore, what is important to them, and that's what is important. And then every little thing that you do against that in the relationship, it's going against your spouse, and meaning, you know, I don't care to do this. That's a problem in the relationship. It could be I'm tired, I need a break. That's a different discussion. But if you definitely going to, you know, unfortunately, and we'll finish off with this. When I was in yeshiva, there was kollel there, and I remember one of the guys, he was newly married, unfortunately, I hope he's married much better now. This was many, many years ago. But I remember his wife was calling him, and he was just like he was batsman ignoring her. Well, I was very shocked. And they didn't have a good relationship, but they didn't understand how to have a relationship. Hopefully, they got some shalom by himself. But that little thing, what was he doing? He just wasn't paying attention. He was listening to her when she was calling him. So she's going to call him 3 seconds later, and he's going to get his attention. He's going to go. But that little thing is a problem in the essence of the relationship. And so too with us, when we do an Aveira, unfortunately, we don't look at it this way. And this is sort of what the Sikh Satan teach us. But we have to realize that it's a problem in the relationship when we say, I don't want to do this. Like, leave me alone. Like everything the Eibishter wants, I should be doing this. And so too with a husband and wife, a good, healthy relationship. With a wife asks the husband something, he runs. Now, of course, it could be, you have to discuss things sometimes. You have to see what's right and what's wrong. If the husband and the wife wants the husband to stay home from shul, not go to shul on Shabbos, okay, 1 week could be, and every example, you have to be, the scenario, but essentially, if a wife says to her husband, listen, I'm struggling, I haven't slept or whatever, the baby hasn't slept the whole night, I need you to stay here for an hour, not go to learn or whatever, or daven later, come, husband has to go, shy, can't say, you know what? No, I'm going daven to the Eibishter now, you can go figure it out yourself. That's totally, that's the Ruach Shtus. So, Mr. Hashem will continue tomorrow. We'll figure out more of this Ruach Shtus within us and how to overcome it and how to transform it and how to learn to use it out for the good. Have a great day.